think
you don't buy records.
I do buy your records. I have your records. But see, you got different guys that sing different ways. Like,
For decades, fans and lovers of country music recognized and admired Faron Young as the vibrant voice behind hits like Live Fast Young and Hello Walls. However, following his tragic demise, rumors and speculation spread like wildfire, and many people began to ask questions. After years of speculation and silence, the truth has emerged, and it is far from the heartwarming legacy that many hoped for. What you are about to hear may change the way you remember Faron Young forever. The Golden Country Voice. According to history, Faron Young was not just another country singer, but a principal factor in country music during its best years. Many people, both young and old, admired and respected him for his strong voice, catchy songs, and fun personality. Like a plaque or something similar, his music was played and sung everywhere. His style shaped the sound of country music for years. However, behind the stage lights and smiling photos, Faron was a very different person. To understand the mystery that later surrounded his name, we must first understand the man behind the fame. Who was Faron before the mic, paparazzi, fame, and country music? Born on the 11th of February 1932 in Shreveport, Louisiana, Faron came from a working-class family. As a child, he grew up with Southern values and a deep love for music. He listened to singers like Hank Williams and Lefty Frizzell and learned to play the guitar as a teenager. His passion for music was clear early on. Soon, with support and motivation from his family, Faron started performing in local shows and quickly became known in his hometown. By the early 1950s, he had joined a radio show called the Louisiana Hayride. This was a famous show that helped other stars like Elvis Presley get noticed. People loved his voice and stage presence. In no time, a big record label called Capitol Records signed him. This was a major moment in his life. He began recording songs that soon became big hits. Songs like Goin' Steady and If You Ain't Lovin', You Ain't Livin' made Faron a rising star in the world of country music. Faron stood out. He had slicked back hair, sharp clothes, and a voice that made people stop and listen. He could sing about heartbreak in a way that touched the soul. He had a strong fan base. Men respected him. Women loved him. People looked forward to his performances and albums. Interestingly, he was dubbed the Hillbilly Heartthrob due to his attractiveness and charisma, which resulted from that love and respect. Then came one of the biggest songs of his career. In 1961, Faron released a song called Hello Walls. It was written by a young, unknown songwriter named Willie Nelson. The song was about a man talking to the walls of his room after his lover left him. It was sad, strange, and beautiful all at once. It became a huge hit. It stayed at #1 on the country charts for 9 weeks and even made it to the pop charts. That song made Faron and Willie Nelson more famous than ever. Faron did not just sing. He also helped grow the country music industry. Impressively, he started a magazine called Music City News that focused on country music news and artists. He was known for helping new singers and giving chances to people who needed support. He stood by artists like Charlie Pride, who was one of the first black stars in country music. Faron believed in talent and was willing to speak up for people he believed in. However, not everything about Faron was good. He had a strong personality. He spoke his mind and was not afraid of arguments. Some people thought he was funny and bold. Others thought he was rude or difficult. He was not afraid to show his anger, even in public. These signs hinted that he had personal struggles that were not easy to see. Still, his music career was long and successful. He had more than 80 songs on the charts. Many of those songs made it to the top 10. He performed with other big stars and gave fans memorable concerts. People who went to his shows often said he was fun, emotional, and full of energy. He had a way of connecting with fans that felt personal and real. Over time, things started to change. In the late 1970s and into the 80s, country music began to move in a new direction. New sounds and new artists took the spotlight. Faron's music was seen as old-fashioned by some. Radio stations played him less. Record labels gave more attention to younger stars. Even though he still had loyal fans, the world of country music was slowly leaving him behind. Like a baby learning to walk on his own, Faron did not give up. He kept recording and performing. He believed in the kind of music he had always made. He spoke out against the new styles that were becoming popular. He felt that country music was losing its heart and emotion. He wanted to keep the original spirit of the country alive. Even though he was not as popular as before, he stayed true to what he believed. The fame he once had started to fade. That hurt Faron deeply. He had lived most of his life in the spotlight. Losing that attention made him feel forgotten. His personal life became more troubled. He had a harder time keeping close relationships. His moods changed often, but fans still saw him as the man with the bright smile and the golden voice. They did not know how much pain he was feeling inside. The truth is that Faron Young was not just a singer, he was a complex man. He had great talent and a big heart, but also carried heavy burdens. He helped build the world of country music and inspired many who came after him. He also struggled with the pressure attached to fame and the fear of being left behind. Faron Young was more than just his music. He was a man with hopes, flaws, and stories that few people ever heard. Let's have a closer look at Faron's life behind the spotlight. Faron's personal struggles. Outwardly, Faron Young was known for his bright smile, smooth voice, and charm on stage, and fans loved everything he brought to the stage, but behind the camera flashes and applause, he was fighting battles that very few people knew about. Yes, fame gave him money and attention, but it also brought pressure, loneliness, and habits that slowly took over his life. The cracks in his personal world were hidden behind closed doors, where the crowds could not see. At the height of his career, Faron was one of the biggest names in country music. He toured constantly, recorded hit after hit, and was often featured in magazines and newspapers. However, fame brought with it a fast-paced lifestyle, characterized by late nights, alcohol, and parties. In addition to his music, Faron gained notoriety for his outrageous actions. Over time, drinking became a regular part of his life and started to have an impact on him that even his closest friends could not deny. According to reports, Faron's passion for alcohol began at a young age. Initially, it added to the enjoyment. He would have drinks with his bandmates and fans after the performances. He thought it made him more at ease and enhanced his reputation as a bold, vivacious entertainer. However, as time passed, it became more than just fun. He turned to drinking as a means of escaping the stress of his personal issues, the pressure of fame, and the anxiety of losing his relevance. Alcohol slowly changed his personality. He was known to be warm and friendly when sober, but when he drank too much, he could become angry and unpredictable. His temper grew worse with time. He would sometimes lash out at people around him, including fellow musicians and even fans. His words could be sharp and hurtful, especially when he was under the influence. Friends began to worry about him, but Faron often brushed off their concerns. He believed he had everything under control. His drinking also caused trouble in his relationships. Faron had a charming side that attracted many women, but he struggled to maintain a healthy personal life. He was married to Hilda Macon, and together they had children, but the marriage was full of problems. Faron struggled to remain faithful or present in his family's life due to the combination of fame, travel, and alcohol. Arguments at home became common, and the tension took a toll on everyone involved. Regretfully, the relationship declined after his wife eventually filed for divorce. Faron was devastated by the loss of his marriage, but he turned to alcohol even more rather than getting help. He believed that it was the only thing that would never abandon him, unlike some prestigious professions, or cause him to be divorced, like his wife. His actions became increasingly unpredictable, and he often appeared in public while drunk. Some promoters stopped booking him for shows as a result of this odd behavior, while others who were worried cautioned him that his actions were harming his reputation. However, Faron had a hard time changing. He was trapped in a cycle of drinking, regret, and isolation. The emotional cost of fame also weighed heavily on him. Faron enjoyed performing, but the pressure to remain relevant wore him down. In the beginning, he was the most popular star. As new artists emerged, his popularity began to dwindle. His songs were played on radio stations less often. Younger singers took his place on award shows and music charts. He found it difficult to accept his loss of fame, as if the world were moving on without him. Being a star was central to his identity. Without the attention, he had trouble finding his calling. He frequently discussed how he no longer felt respected and how country music had evolved. Some thought he sounded bitter, but the truth was that he was heartbroken. The life he had worked so hard to create was slowly fading away. Faron's pain was not always apparent. On stage, he continued to smile, singing with passion, but off stage, he was tired, hurt, and unsure of his future. An industry he once helped shape made him feel forgotten. The emotional weight of that feeling was heavy. It added to his drinking, his anger, and his loneliness. By the 1990s, Faron had become a shadow of the man he once was. His health began to decline, and his public appearances became rare. Those who met him in those final years said he seemed sad and distant. He would sometimes talk about the old days, remembering the times when fans cheered and record deals came easily. But those days were gone, and Faron knew it. Despite everything, he never fully lost his talent or his heart. He still cared deeply about music. He still loved the fans who remembered him. Unfortunately, he could not outrun the damage that alcohol and emotional pain had done to his life. His story became a quiet warning about the price of fame and the pain that can grow when someone feels forgotten. In private, Faron Young was more than just a country music icon. He was an individual battling unhealthy habits, heartache, and the fear of abandonment. He felt powerless and alone. The final days. As time went on, Faron Young was no longer the energetic performer fans once recognized and acknowledged. The fame, the spotlight, and the crowds were gone, and what remained this time was deep silence and growing sadness. In an unexpected twist, the same man who had once lit up every room was now living in the shadows, shut off from the world that had once praised him. Faron spent more and more time alone. His phone barely rang. Friends who used to come around were no longer present. Most of them had either passed on, moved away, or simply lost touch. The music business had shifted to younger stars after relying on his voice in the past, and that hurt him deeply. He felt abandoned by the very world he helped build. He frequently sat at home and thought about the past. His glory days were all he spoke about. He recalled the thrill of performing, the joy of hearing his songs on the radio, and the fans who had once cheered for him, but those memories simply reminded him of what he had lost. With each quiet day, he felt further removed from the world around him. He no longer had the energy to fight for attention or chase the next career move. He did not feel needed, loved, or even seen. This emotional weight dragged him down, making it harder to get out of bed, make plans, or even speak to others. He stopped performing, stopped traveling, and stopped caring. He was no longer living. He was simply existing. His health added more pain. He was dealing with physical problems that slowed him down. Years of drinking and stress had weakened his body. He had aches and illnesses that made every day harder than the last. But what hurt even more than his body was the feeling of being forgotten. The younger generation of country singers barely mentioned him. Award shows and industry events passed him over. He once felt like a king in Nashville, but now he felt invisible. Bitterness began to show, and he openly discussed how the industry had turned its back on him. He believed that as artists aged and became less profitable, they were no longer respected. He talked about this often. While some believed he was simply being grumpy, others saw the pain behind his words. He wasn't angry because he despised the industry. He was upset because he had loved it deeply, and it had stopped loving him in return. At home, everything was quiet. The music, the laughter, and the excitement that once filled the place had all faded. He still had his photos, old records, and awards, but they couldn't fill the emptiness he felt. His house felt lonelier each day. Even when people stopped by, it was hard for him to open up. The sadness inside was heavy, and it kept growing. Faron also had a tough time with family. He had children, but staying close to them wasn't easy. That made it harder for him to show love or ask for help. He often felt like he was in the way, and without meaning to, he pushed others away. The emotional distance only added to his loneliness. He wanted love, but did not know how to ask for it. He felt like he had no future. There were no concerts to plan, no new albums to record, and no reason to keep going. He had done it all, and now he saw no path forward. His past was rich, but his present felt empty, and his tomorrow felt pointless. Then, on the 9th of December, 1996, everything reached a breaking point. Faron took a gun and shot himself in the head. He was found in his home and taken to the hospital. He passed away the next day. The world lost a country legend, but behind that headline was a man who had felt lost and broken for a long time. News of his demise shocked fans and fellow musicians. Many had no idea he was in such deep pain. His demise opened up a larger conversation about mental health and how the music industry treats its aging stars. As expected, people began to ask, how could someone who gave so much end up feeling so alone? What really happened to Faron? After he passed away, tributes poured in. Friends, fans, and other artists spoke of his talent, his bold spirit, and the joy he had brought to so many. However, others felt guilty. Many admitted they had not checked on him. Some said they wished they had stayed in touch. Even though his name stopped showing up on the charts, people still cared deeply about Faron Young. His passing wasn't just surprising, it really hurt. It showed that being famous doesn't keep you from feeling alone. He had love around him, but when it all faded, he was left by himself. What did the entertainment industry have to say about this? Keep watching to find out. The avoided discussion. Faron Young was one of country music's most celebrated stars, yet the industry turned its back on him when he needed it the most. As his personal life crumbled, his career faded, and his mental health declined, the country music world stayed silent. There were no statements of concern. There were no attempts at intervention. There were no support systems in place. Nobody wanted to talk about what was happening to one of their own. Faron was once a regular at country music award shows and industry gatherings. His name was printed on billboards, and his voice played on every major station. But as newer artists took over, invitations stopped coming. His calls went unanswered. His albums went unreleased. The people he had once helped get into the business acted like they did not know him. The sudden silence was not just disrespectful, it was damaging. It pushed him deeper into isolation. Faron began to notice the change. He often complained about being left behind. In several interviews, he mentioned how the industry only cared about fresh faces. He accused country music leaders of ignoring older stars. He said they celebrated his work in speeches, but ignored him in real life. He was not joking. He was trying to speak up about how artists were discarded. His words were warnings, but nobody responded. He was drinking more. He was often seen drunk in public. He would argue with people. He made inappropriate jokes. His behavior was growing more erratic. These were not hidden signs. People in the music scene saw it. They whispered about it backstage, they laughed about it at parties, but no one ever said, "Faron needs help." He was becoming a walking headline, but nobody tried to stop the collapse. He got into fights at clubs. He once pulled a gun during an argument. He cursed out radio hosts. He made enemies everywhere he went. He was labeled difficult, dangerous, and too far gone. The industry used these words to justify avoiding him. It was easier to walk away than to confront the truth. Nobody asked why a man who once lit up stages was now angry, drunk, and broken. Some people could have stepped in. Big names who once shared stages with him, record labels that had profited from his songs, associations that had given him awards. None of them did anything. They kept quiet. They let the story play out in gossip columns and rumors. Nobody wanted to touch the truth. Country music was supposed to be about family, heart, and loyalty, but when one of its own began falling, there was no loyalty, just silence. In the years leading up to his demise, Faron spoke even more openly about his pain. He said he felt invisible. He told reporters that country music had no use for him anymore. He said the young artists did not care about the legends. He said he would not be remembered. These were not dramatic complaints, they were true. The industry had already moved on. After his demise, the silence got worse. The news shocked many fans, but the reaction from the industry was quiet. There were no major tributes. There were no memorial concerts. The award shows made no effort to honor him that year. Radio stations gave short reports and went back to playing music. It was like his demise made people uncomfortable, so they chose to forget it. No one asked what went wrong. No one admitted the warning signs were there. No one in power spoke about mental health. No one said the business should have done more. His demise became just another headline. His name faded even faster. No foundations were built in his honor, and no programs were created to help other artists. Country music lost one of its biggest voices, and the leaders stayed silent. The younger generation of artists barely knew his name. They did not hear about the pain. They were not taught the full story. Faron was mentioned in passing as just another name in history. His records were rarely played. His legacy was not celebrated. His struggles were buried deep. Behind the scenes, some artists admitted they had seen the changes in him. A few said they felt bad for not calling. Some said they did not know how to help. Some said they were afraid of him. None of them had gone public before. Their guilt stayed private. The industry as a whole never held itself accountable. Faron was not the only one. Other country artists from his generation went through similar things. Labels dropped them and they were ignored by the radio and left out of the spotlight. Some lost their homes, some drank themselves to nothing. Faron's case was just the most public, but it was part of a larger pattern. The industry celebrated success, but had no plan for what came after. People who built the foundations of country music were treated like forgotten tools. Once they stopped making money, they were ignored. There was no retirement support, no mental health care, no safety net. The music business praised loyalty in songs, but showed very little in real life. Even now, many people in the country music world still avoid talking about Faron Young's final years. They talk about his early hits. Although they praise his charm and post old pictures, they skillfully skip over the pain, focusing only on the bright side of Faron Young, thereby leaving the truth and hiding the part where the industry failed to protect him. The truth revealed. For years, fans of Faron Young were left wondering what happened. He was once a big name in country music, but slowly faded away. The news talked about his drinking, his bad temper, and eventually, his heartbreaking demise. However, nobody really knew the full story. The country music world didn't say much. His friends stayed quiet, and even his family kept a lot of things to themselves. That silence kept the truth hidden for a long time. Now, though, more things are finally being revealed. Letters, interviews, and personal stories are helping explain what really led to Faron Young's fall. The mystery is no longer just about why he passed away. It is about why the people around him let it happen. And the truth is as painful as it is revealing. Faron Young suffered from major depression for many years. While most people thought his issues were caused only by alcohol, it turns out the drinking was a symptom, not the root. He had been dealing with deep emotional wounds long before he ever picked up a bottle. Letters written by Faron, recently released by his son, reveal that he felt abandoned, misunderstood, and unloved. He often wrote about being invisible to the world. He felt forgotten by fans, by friends, and by the music industry. His depression was not just emotional, it had medical signs. He experienced long periods of isolation, insomnia, intense anger, and even paranoia. There were times he would stay in his house for weeks without speaking to anyone. Friends who visited said they found a man who seemed like a shadow of the person they once knew. They said it was just Faron being Faron. They thought he would snap out of it, but when his wife asked for a divorce, they sensed trouble but didn't know how to prevent it. What we now know is that he was showing textbook signs of clinical depression, and no one responded. He never received the treatment he needed. He never went to therapy. He was never placed on medication, not because he refused it, but because it was never seriously offered or encouraged by those around him. In the country music world of the 80s and 90s, mental illness was a taboo subject. It was seen as a weakness. Faron, the so-called hillbilly heartthrob, was expected to be strong. The second part of the mystery lies in how his money and rights were handled. Faron was not broke when he left the earth, but he had lost control of much of his music catalog. Legal papers show that several of his publishing rights had been sold off or mismanaged. Some of his biggest songs were making money, but Faron was not receiving the full share. He often mentioned being cheated. Most people thought it was just drunk talk, but now we know he was telling the truth. Financial stress was pressing down on him harder than fans knew. He was also dealing with chronic physical pain. A back injury from years earlier had worsened over time. Combined with arthritis, it made standing on stage unbearable. His career suffered as he began to cancel more shows. The industry saw him as unreliable. They stopped booking him. That isolation only deepened his depression. The most important truth is this: Faron Young asked for help, and nobody listened. He mentioned in several interviews. He told people he did not want to be here anymore. One friend recalled that Faron once said, "If I did, it wouldn't even make the news." These were not passing remarks. They were cries for help. They were warnings that were ignored. Why did this remain hidden for so long? The answer is pride, fear, and image. In the country music scene of that time, artists were expected to be tough. They were expected to drink, to joke, work hard, and never show weakness. Admitting depression, financial trouble, or personal pain would ruin an artist's image. Record labels protected their stars' reputations, not their health. Managers told artists to keep quiet. Many artists like Faron suffered in silence. Even after his demise, there was a clear effort to avoid the uncomfortable truth. Obituaries focused on his career, not his pain. Industry leaders offered short tributes, but avoided talking about what led him to make such a horrible decision. It took years before anyone began to speak honestly. The revelation of the truth alters everything. It exposes a serious problem with the way the music industry handles its icons, demonstrates that notoriety does not shield one from pain, and indicates that even the biggest stars can experience feelings of forgetfulness. Faron Young was not just a victim of alcohol or aging, he was a victim of silence, stigma, and neglect. What if someone had simply paid attention? Could the catastrophe that transpired in December of 1996 have been avoided? Let us know your thoughts in the comments. If you enjoyed the video, like, share, and subscribe to this channel for more. Before you go, watch the other videos on your screen.